and does Bob Baffert, but he's going to be appearing live via satellite later. This guy comes in because he loves horse racing. He's always loved horse racing. He's the guy at ESPN that loves horse racing. I've seen him on Up Front on my Twitter feed this week. I know he's up to something no good on Thursday night with Scott Van Pelt. We welcome him back. He is the main event, the main attraction. My friend Kenny_Maine out on Twitter. What's going on, man? I was up in Seattle last week, and now you come to my town for crab cakes. That's nice, man.
I heard you were at U2. My niece was in the audience with you and many thousands of others. I've never had the privilege of seeing them in person, so I feel bad I was out of town for that, but I had work going on in New York for ESPN. But I hope you enjoyed it, and that'd be quite a show. That's a nice joint, too, isn't it, CenturyLink?
Yeah, people ask me, like, why do I live in Baltimore? And I'm like, well, I've done sports radio here for 25 years, and this is the place I know in the land of pleasant living and the teams, but I travel places. Man, when I go to Seattle, other than the rain, which can really be an annoyance there, I mean, I captured some very dramatic, would have been a nice Pearl Jam cover of a storm, coming through over top the needle as I came through with the two stadiums, but Seattle's a nice place, man. It's a good vibe out there. If I had to be exiled from Baltimore, there'd be worse places than to go live like Fraser Crane and hang out there, I think.
I think it has a lot of attributes. When it's a nice day, I don't know that there's a prettier place. There are many great places, but you got the mountains, you got water. People don't know Seattle, or who haven't been there. Seattle is surrounded by water. On to the west, you have ocean water, the salt water that comes in from the ocean. Puget Sound is what it's called. On the east, you have Lake Washington, this 22-mile-long lake. The Seahawks are headquartered on Lake Washington. We live in that area, and just, you see Mount Rainier when it pops out, and it is true. And this summer, or this winter, rather, all-time worst. It rained, and it even snowed and iced up, and we were dreading it. But, I'm lucky because I get to fly for work, so I got to do some L.A., California time for SportsCenter and horse race story and highlight story. We covered highlight.
I've never done highlight. Like, I've passed the Fronton many times down with my friends in Hialeah and Miami and Fort Lauderdale. I've never gone in. I would see it. Like, going to highlight with you, I think that would be a good time, Kenny. I really do.
You know what? I require you on your next Florida trip. You have to go. It's some people don't know what it is or how to say it, but it's Jailai. It's pronounced highlight. I went to UNLV way back when. They used to have a fronton at the old MGM, which is now the Bally's, right? The MGM's the big one across the street. And that was our entertainment. We're broke college kids.
They had a fronton in Vegas?
At the old MGM, the one that had the fire. Remember?
Was it Cuban-owned or something? Or Miami, just Meyer Landscaping? What was going on there,
I can't say that, but, it's a sport that, you go way back and you see it, a sport from the 50s and 60s, and it's a sport that started in the Basque region of Spain and France, and they tried to make a go of it in America and started it in a number of places. They had it in Rhode Island and Newport. They had 2 or 3 in Hartford, Bridgeport, Milford. They had the Miami and the Dania one, Orlando. I know the sport because I actually love the sport. We would go. We would yell when they threw the ball because they have an over-under serve. We would try to make them choke. We're betting $4 or whatever in college. And what they do is amazing. The athleticism truly is incredible. I got to play it in Miami a couple times, try on the practice court, and I could throw okay, but catching it is not an easy thing.
Well, you were like a quarterback, right? So, catching it probably has some property of like catching a lacrosse ball, right? Like where there's a little bit of give to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can throw anything still. My shoulder's starting to wear on me, old, separated shoulder from whatever, 1979. But the catching, you have to catch and swing back and kind of give it a cushion. If you just stick the cesta is what it's called that they wear on their hands. Basically, it's like racquetball with 3 walls. The 4th wall doesn't exist. There's not a bounds line. If it goes past that, it's out of bounds, or goes all the way to the net, the screen to protect the fans, that's out of bounds. I say give it a try. Or what you can do, just Google highlight, Jai. I sound like the most, serious, diligent ambassador of the sport right now. I'm not getting paid. You'll like it. Fastest ball sport in the world.
I mean, I've always seen it, and it's always sort of intrigued. It's like dog racing. I've never been to a greyhound track, Kenny. I mean, a lot of sports writers in Fort Lauderdale, we were down there with the Orioles all those years. Those guys would always want to go to the dog track. I just have never. I do like horse racing. We've been through this many times. It's the reason you're here. It's your passion for horse racing that leads you to these Triple Crown races every year. Does ESPN really want to send you, or is it just sort of like, is this your idea, or is it that you're the dude that loves it so much that over the last 20 years, you're always the guy in town on Wednesday looking for a crab cake and looking to talk horse racing with a guy like me?
You know, there were 4 questions there, but I'm a horse guy over a dog guy, but the story I worked on involves a dog and a horse. So you actually set it up not knowing before. I didn't even think this before in the little pre-thing we had. I'm doing a story about the horse that didn't run in the Kentucky Derby. Thunder Snow, the horse from Dubai that decided
that broke poorly, right? Okay, correct.
Jump up and down and act like a 1-year-old puppy, and we found a way to marry the. So essentially, the setup. I'm giving away what we're doing, but maybe it'll make more people watch the Scott Van Pelt Sports Center, midnight Eastern, Thursday night, which is technically in the Friday, but you know what I mean, tomorrow night. And we are reanalyzing what in the world happened because I don't know if everybody saw. It was one of the most ridiculous things since at the Pimlico at the Preakness Day when the guy jumped over the fence and took a swing at Artax down the stretch. You remember that well?
I remember that absolutely well. I actually knew people who knew that guy, sadly.
Nope.
That's Baltimore. That's Baltimore. Everybody knew that guy or grew up with him and said, woo-hoo, out to lunch, you know.
It was a strange moment. I got my money back. I bet on the horse that the guy tried to hit with his fist. He stood and faced horses coming down the stretch and took a swing at a horse called Artax, who was a great sprinter. Anyway, that's a whole
The video of that is absolutely frightening, isn't it? I mean, it looks like something on your worst social media share page, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want fans on the field of play. That's no question. But to answer the question, when I first got to ESPN, I told them out of the gate the 2 sports I love and that I think I know, more than any others, football and horse racing. And it took a while, but, when we met each other, I was actually covering horse racing as one of my main beats. Like I probably went to 20, 25 races a year, and then I did the football stories in the fall, and that was my job. ESPN just slowly backed out of horse racing. NBC has all the coverage now, and they do a great job. It's funny, they basically took our guys. We got Jerry Bailey, the Hall of Famer. We got Randy Moss, my good friend. Not that Jerry isn't, but you know what I'm saying. And Jay Stedman, Daily Racing Foreman. And Kenny Rice. I'm surprised Janine stayed with us. But they do well what they're doing. ESPN decided, we're covering this and we're not covering that. And can't do much about it. But I still go as a fan a couple times a year to what I can. Go to some Breeders' Cups. I was there for all the American Pharoah races. This time I'm actually working. We did that little piece I described where we're kind of caught up in the past. We can't let go of that ridiculous non-effort by Thunder Snow, and I lost my money. I was doing well on Derby Day. I hit a huge race with the horse, what's it called? Limousine Liberal. What the heck is it called? I got it. It'll come to me. We'll Google it. Limousine Liberal. I'm going with that.
That's fine.
That was it. And I think that horse won at like 15 or 16-1. So I was doing well, making a comeback. I was ahead for the day. I took a shot on this ridiculous horse, and my race was over 3 seconds after the running started. I was done. My horse is not running. He is not going to make it to the finish line. But we think we found some humor in it, kind of making fun of me for picking it, and we got some great characters in the story. Found a couple of guys betting the simulcast. They're out there at Pimlico. They're not racing today on Wednesday, but they're still betting on other tracks.
Well, if you need a foil or a dummy in Baltimore, I'm available all weekend, Ken. Just toss me a text. You won't get a tourist crab cake if you hang out with me in Baltimore. Trust me on that. But I guess everyone will go to the track on Saturday. Better weather conditions, and we have a true odds-on favorite, a horse that's supposed to win, a horse that's supposed to create excitement for the next 3 weeks for Belmont for when you're up there. Always dreaming. Some thoughts about going and getting this horse on Saturday, Kenny?
Yeah, I mean, it figured in the Derby there were 3 or 4 that none of them would have surprised you had that horse won. It had the better trip. I think if you have $2 to play, you can root for it if you're all for seeing another Triple Crown shot. But I think Classic Empire, the horse who finished 4th in the Kentucky Derby and had tons of trouble, but really showed a lot to fight on, because a lot of horses, when they come back, it was a muddy day and they're getting dirt and the slop kicked in their face. they'll just kind of give up, and the jockey knows it's time to take ninth place and call it a day. This horse spot on, and fourth place in a 20-horse field, or 19 if you count the horse that I bet on, was admirable. So you're going to get a better payoff back in the horse that needs to improve off that race than just playing the winner, who, like you say, is probably going to be even money, 4 to 5, somewhere in there.
For the rest of this field, Classic Empire looks to be second choice and a very legitimate horse. And I think a horse, if you look at the Derby run, had a bad trip. And that's not unusual in a field like that, on a day like that, right? I mean, a bad trip is the story on 5 or 6 horses every year on the Derby, right?
Yeah. You remember Point Given, 2001? In that case, that was more about, chasing too hot of a pace. I think they set like a world record for the first half fractions. But Point Given then went on and won the others and was clearly the best horse. For them, the best horse doesn't win. 20 horses is kind of ridiculous. And Europe and in Asia, they run some bigger fields. I've seen the European races with 30 horses, literally. Wow. 30 horses.
Wow. Yeah, how is the track wide enough to accommodate that from a gate standpoint?
Yeah, it just is.
It's like looking at a freeway in Beijing. You're like, how can you get that many lanes? You just do.
How about trying to be the race call? Yeah, I'm talking about European racing there. I think Hong Kong caps them at 14. Japan is the one that you'll see 18 horses out there. It's kind of a mess, but what's great for the better is if you can be lucky enough to pick it right, the money's spread out and you're going to get better payouts. When you get these 4 and 7 horse fields, a lot of our tracks, it's just not the same. So it creates the excitement. But the Derby is what it is. Everybody wants in it. They actually used to go beyond 20. If you look back, there were some fields of 23, 24. They finally wised up. I think 14 is the right number, Breeders' Cup style. It makes it a truer, fairer race. But it's hard to deny these folks who want to get their horse in the Kentucky Derby and all that means, for the future, for the breeding rights and so forth to pull that thing off. But yeah, logically, it's those 2 horses. I don't think Gunnavera is a crazy choice. That horse, didn't run as well in the Derby as they had hoped. Some people think it might be spent from the campaign of having run all these races to get ready for the Derby. But if you want to play a little longer shot, I think that's the next one you take a stab at.
We are on the line with my main man, Kenny Mayne. You can follow his journey out on Twitter, Kenny_Mayne. And, of course, hundreds of thousands do as the legend of ESPN continues. And you're doing something with Scott on Thursday night, right? So you're still out doing some fun, doing main event style pieces here in the new version of ESPN, correct?
Yeah, not as many. The old version that you referred to, that was back when we'd come and do the Ravens, and we'd basically write a script ahead of time, tell the players what you're going to say. Here's your line, Tom Brady. All right, try it again. All right, no, hit that word harder. And now they've, without really a discussion, it just sort of morphed into this. I think people favor more do a real story, just do it in a little weirder way than the next guy, and just see what really happens out there by doing it more naturally instead of, a forced skit, so to speak. Some of those worked, some of them didn't. I think sometimes when you're in a hurry, I think I can sometimes write a better line for the guy than the one we're going to hope for, waiting around 12 minutes for the interview. So it was for efficiency as well. So I'm doing some of that for the Van Pelt Show, but my job's changing as of June 1st. I have a new package with them where they want more sports centers. They want suit and tie and say silly things with home runs. And
you clean up nicely. I mean, honestly, I think so. I mean, you look nice in a suit, Ken.
Say that one more time.
You look nice in a suit. You clean up. I mean, they put you on there like that. That's good for you, right?
It's funny. When I, years and years ago, when I shifted away from SportsCenter and Tyler, and all I was doing was horse racing and running around the world in flip-flops and the occasional appearance, I gave away, I think, like a dozen suits.
You want them back now?
No, I'm okay. I've rebuilt the stock a bit, but I didn't need them, and it was I don't like to be wasteful. Like I'd rather give away, either give your food to somebody else who needs it that you might see outside your restaurant, or I hate wasted things. So I found a cool place as a shelter/jobs program.
Awesome.
For some men, and put on a suit. Maybe one of them got a job, so hopefully it does some good. But I like doing sports centers. I hadn't done it forever. About 3 years ago or so, I went back and started doing a certain number of them in Los Angeles mostly, and still doing some of the features out in the field. And they said this time around we just sports center and really nothing else.
Okay,
so
we'll be seeing more of you then, I guess. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I did from the start, and basically a couple of years in, and I've been there now 23 years. So it's kind of going back to what I once did. I'm going to shuttle back and forth across the country. I got my daughters in Seattle. I'll do a week of sports centers in Connecticut. That's where my future wife is. And then I'll come back, and she'll sometimes come back out with me, or other times I'll do this with my kids. And it's going to work out for all reasons.
Well, that's awesome. Kenny Mayne joining us here. Last thing for you. We talked about, NBC doing the coverage, and when you guys do coverage of events, the horse racing thing for me more than any other sport, maybe it's because of my Baltimore thing, and it's sort of the circus that comes to town for a week every year, literally, because there's not much of a circuit here as a guy who's done sports radio for 25 years where I go out and people talk horse racing with me. It's not a part of the local vernacular here, maybe in the way it was in the 40s and 50s and 60s, but every year these stories come through, and, we're missing Bob Baffert this year, but Pletcher certainly is a great story and probably has a lot of years ahead of him as a great trainer already. All these Eclipse Award winners. We had Royal Mo out earlier this week. We have a Triple Crown possibility, as we always seem to have, as long as it's not the spend a buck year. And the story of the Venezuelan trainer being kidnapped. I'm of Venezuelan lineage, as you know, Kenny. There's a lot of stories here from a storytelling perspective in horse racing.
It's true with all sports. If you dig a little deeper, and they're all real people. They all came from somewhere, and they have a story before we knew them. For whatever it is that they're celebrated for now. And sometimes it's the same with the horse. In the Derby, not running in this one, you have that one-eyed horse patch. You go to the human side of it, and some of them are the big time. Todd Pletcher has hundreds of horses around the country, and like he's a system. He's a company. He's not just the guy with a few horses and hoping to get lucky. But once in a while, you get those characters that kind of come out of nowhere, and this is their shot. It almost happened a couple years ago with California Chrome. Those folks kind of came out of nowhere, and once in a while you get the trainer who's just about to retire, but he lucks out, and they found just the right one. And it takes a lot of luck. It takes patience and luck. I grew up with it. I was just telling the story to somebody else earlier that I started reading the racing forum when I was about 8 years old. My Uncle Gordy, who, by the way, I put it on Twitter, I spread some of his ashes at all three of the Triple Crown sites after he passed away, because he's the one who taught me the game.
That's awesome.
He would have loved that. So the little side walking ring right by the stakes barn, they got the jockey statue right there. Some Uncle Gordy, it's probably rained over by now, but that's kind of cool. Like, it feels good, a remembrance of, something he taught me and something that meant a lot to us. I like the feeling out there. I like the people, and I like the build-up. There was an old guy we were talking to in the track today, and he was lamenting the fact that young people don't get it. They're too impatient. They want quick action. They want immediate celebration and gratification. And there's something about the patience and the science of it that attracts me to the sport still. Like, I think it'll always be in me.
I've asked that question to everybody this week who's in town for the race, and the media people. What do you love about it? And clearly you still have an incredible passion for it, and I believe you always will, right?
Absolutely. I think it's the way to describe it for me is everybody has their comfort zone, whatever it is. It's when your uncle used to take you to the minor league baseball field. Maybe what's that place we went to? Hagerstown, Maryland, right?
Hagerstown, that's correct, yes.
Hagerstown?
That's it.
It's the hottest day on record, by the way. We did a story on Daryl Stingley's son. His name's Derek. I think he played out there. It was 20 years ago. And
by the way, it was the hottest place because they were the Hagerstown Suns. That was the name of the team, the Suns.
Well, they could have called it the Humidity also would have been a good name for that team. But no, whatever it is that it feels good to be in that environment. And for me, I just remember, I can see it now. I haven't been on that road forever. We'd take this, it's called the West Valley Highway, and the 15-minute journey, and I would read him the first race, and he's freaking his, I can just see it all and feel it all, and walking in and the poplar trees and Mount Rainier in the distance, and certain things just make you feel at home. So whatever it is for you, it may be something else. Maybe, there's people who know that day of getting ready for a Ravens game here, the Orioles game or whatever it is, and I think it stays with you forever.
Well, and then there's the part where, like, my favorite place was 33rd Street Memorial Stadium, and they ripped that down. Now it's hard for me to, drive through there and see the YMCA. At some point, Pimlico is going to come down, Kenny, right? I think every year we get together and say, how many more years are they going to race in this place? You've seen them all. You've traveled the world. Boy, I don't know that there's an out here that doesn't include Laurel, right?
It needs a paint job. There's no question about that. I mean, I don't know. It's not my money to spend, but they would have to put in a lot of money to get it to, like in the other the team pro sports, how they say you need to upgrade it and you have to have luxury suites and all those type of things that keep a team in a town or that what they want for their next stadium. They just have never done. They just kept kicking it down the road, and we honestly don't know if the elevator is going to make it to the top most of the time. So they do a great job with the race. They got the flowers out there, and the place, it looked really good today. The inside of the track, where they're going to run. But there's just so much that would have to be done to get it up to the standards that people come to expect elsewhere. I don't know. I'd miss it if it left that. That's where it belongs. So I hope they find a way, whatever the method is. But the problem with it is when you only have the one big day a year, how much money can you sink into something unless they're going to rent it out for other things, the concerts and so forth, and find a way to maximize, the return on it.
Yeah, and there's a thought of getting a Breeders' Cup down at Laurel if they did some improvements down there. So I know they're all sort of focused on that, which would also be a great thing and maybe get you back into the land of pleasant living, Kenny Mayne. Hey, no tourist crab cakes for you while you're here, okay? Enjoy your stay. It's always good to have you here in the Charm City, man.
I'm in and out. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, going back to see my girls. I've been gone too long, so I'll watch it from a distance. But the story runs Thursday night late on SportsCenter.
You got it, man. We'll be following you out at ESPN and the new Sports Center in the new world after June 1, and, of course, out of Kenny_Mayne. Kenny, always appreciate you, man. Be well.
All right, thanks for having me.
You got it, Kenny Mayne of ESPN, and the worldwide leader and our longtime friend around here about all things horse racing and comedy and fun and main events and all that good stuff, and always one of the good dudes in our industry. Great to have him drop by, as he always does. We got great horse racing coverage here leading up to Preakness 142 at WNST. Anything you missed, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Reminder, London, Nashville, Green Bay, your Ravens trips, they're on sale. You want to get at least a deposit in right now so we can hold your space for that. London is closing down very, very quickly. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.